The DJI Mavic saved Ukraine. This is the game-changing weapon of Ukraine. Ukraine would have fallen if it wasn't for this thing.
How long will we remain safe here in Western Europe? Is a war of drones heading our way? Welcome to the battlefield of tomorrow.
It was scary. At first I dreamed a lot about drones. I'd wake up totally convinced that a drone was heading my way. That was early on. Scary.
The war in Ukraine has completely shaken up the global defense industry. One small dirt-cheap device, freely available everywhere, has made warfare deadlier than ever before. It only takes 3 clicks on social media apps like Telegram to see video after video of soldiers being picked off by drones one by one. And now these drones are increasingly controlled by AI.
At the front, you have practically no time to look up. During the fighting, bullets are everywhere. And then those drones. There's not enough time to see everything. The number of drones is extreme, really a crazy amount. It's impossible to hide from them. All you can do is hope it misses you, or doesn't see you.
So here he is, a wounded Ukrainian soldier in a half-empty rehabilitation center in Avek, in the Netherlands. In this sleepy village, locals don't have the faintest idea what it's like to fight in a drone war.
A drone dropped a grenade on me. I have only a vague memory of the next few minutes. There was a heavy explosion. I don't remember the next few minutes. When I regained consciousness, I realized my arm was torn and bleeding a lot. After we had our first wounded soldier, drones destroyed our position completely. The first casualty was the soldier on the machine gun. He didn't survive. All of us were hit by drones except one guy. One by one, the boys went down. 4 of our group of 11 were left, all wounded. We retreated, with the Russians close on our heels chasing us. It was very hard. At least 2 drones were after us. We reached the hospital in a village. No idea which one. I'd lost a lot of blood. They put me on a drip. Other than that, I don't remember much. I just found myself in the hospital.
There's no real running from it, and there's no real hiding from it. It's either going to kill you or it's going to miss. Tall trees, areas where there's lots of overhead wires, buildings, ideally buildings with nice, robust... one of the great things the Soviets did was they made everything have a concrete ceiling. And that's a nice, 30 centimetre thick concrete ceiling is what you want above you, ideally,
British-born Joe McDonald is not your run-of-the-mill Ukrainian frontline soldier. He used to be a blacksmith. But when Putin invaded Ukraine, he volunteered for the Ukrainian army. He's currently a drone pilot with the 34th Brigade in the town of Kherson. He also posts regular updates for his followers on YouTube.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Baba Yaga. Huge, isn't it? Massive thing. Carry 10 kilos long distance and 20 kilos a short distance, that will. No more house. Why do CQB if there isn't a house to clear?
So, just on the way to do a bit of an EOD mission at the moment. Quite an exciting one.
It's just getting the warhead out of this thing. And here we go. Winter is coming.
So, I've literally just left Kherson and I am on the way to Europe to, and at this moment still, unspecified European country.
Does it feel absurd to be in a peacetime city like Amsterdam?
It's odd, a little bit. I mean, Kyiv gets hit fairly often, but it still can be bizarre how normal life is. Even Mykolaiv, it's only 80 kilometers from Kherson, but you can be there and some days there won't be a single air raid, you won't hear an explosion, people are in the coffee shops, people are in the bars, life continues as normal. And then you go back to Kherson and on a quiet day there's 100 explosions. When Putin did the main invasion, when the big war started, I knew that like my time had come. I'm not married, I don't have any children. I'd just come out of 2 years of COVID lockdown, and with the prospects of another lockdown looming, it was like, war or another lockdown? Well, the chances of me not surviving either seem about 50-50 at this point, so I chose war. I mean, it seemed a very black and white situation to me, morally, you know. We have to say we're never going to be able to hear someone trimming the grass in the same way again. The tendons in the back of my knees is twitching a little bit. Part of me wants to run.
Do they usually get this close?
No, if it was that close, that's like an easy shot. It'd normally be 50, 60 meters, and that's when it's dropping a bomb on you. If it's observing you, it'll be a couple of 100 meters up. So what you've got here by the looks of things is what looks to be a very well-made 10-inch FPV. An FPV is a first-person view drone. These can carry a serious payload of up to 6 kilograms.
Where would you put the explosives?
Cable tied to the bottom. The Ukrainian army runs off duct tape and cable ties. But yeah, simply cable tied to the bottom and then there'd be either the fuse assembly or nose cone and or some wires if we're using electronic detonation coming out, and when it hits something and the wires touch, boom. It all came from a hobby called drone racing. There's two of these relatively small but very, very fast drones that just see through a kind of little tunnel vision camera and you're racing them round a course. About a year or so into the war, people realised that these things not only could go very fast, but could also carry quite some weight. And they started getting used as a kind of improvised form of guided munition. I've had a FPV come after me a couple of times and it's terrifying. Mortars don't even make my heart rate go up. These bastard things can follow you around a corner. You know, they can follow you round one corner and round another, pull a circle and come at you from the other way. The only thing that's going to save you is trees and wires.
FPV combat drone pilots use video goggles to see what the drone's camera sees. On the battlefield, they often work together with a second pilot who uses an observation drone to search for targets.
So, this is a DJI Mavic Enterprise or Pro, and this is the principal and best drone we use for relatively short-range reconnaissance. With this, you can see like an eagle from anywhere, and at night with a thermal camera, it doesn't matter if you're hiding under the foliage. We can see you anyway. Most of the time, the FPV pilot is working in conjunction with a Mavic pilot. The Mavic pilot will find the target, the FPV will launch, and working together, they will guide the FPV into the target. It's literally the most cost-effective way of destroying the enemy long distance. We don't want a javelin. We'd rather take the FPVs, because one javelin I can get 250 to 500 FPVs. And at 250, there'll be the big ones with a thermal camera that can, each one can carry a tank-destroying munition that we can make ourselves in a shed, you know? Now, men in sheds are capable of making just as dangerous things as any defence company at the end of the day.
These FPV combat drones have become an essential weapon at the front. They're built in huts, basements, and living rooms all over Ukraine, even in the Netherlands.
I hate these ones because the screws are different sizes.
In workshops run by support initiative Drone Aid, volunteers teach recovering veterans how to build drones.
We're also here to share our stories. Drones are the reason for getting together.
You can buy a drone in 3 clicks on AliExpress. So what we are doing here is just basic what you can do at home with your son or with your daughter. So it's just basic stuff, and everyone has access to drones, and you can do it. It's like crafting. If you like IKEA, like making drones is like making IKEA.
Так, маєш рацію.
Like everyone is building drone in Ukraine, so in the kitchen, just sitting and making a drone. And here in the Netherlands we have more capabilities. At least we don't have missiles above our head. We can fundraise money and in euros from Dutch internationals. So there are more resources here, and there is safety. So why, if all our friends are making drones in Ukraine, why shouldn't we do it here? So it's the most direct way to help Ukraine, and at the same time. It's very important for the Netherlands and for Dutch to understand that you cannot just ignore the war, because it's technological advances. If you as a country are behind, then you are behind.
How do soldiers protect themselves against drones?
В кожній бригаді є радіоелектронна боротьба, тобто
All the brigades have jammers to mess up the drone's radio frequency. At the front, you're attacked by lots of drones, depending on the time of day. At night, there are drones with thermal cameras. Then you have a period when dawn breaks. They change the night drones for day drones.
ввечері, коли темніше тільки починає.
That changeover period takes roughly 90 minutes.
Тільки можна ходити, бо тоді дрони міняються.
The rest of the time, the sky is filled with drones.
Півтори буквально добу. Остальний час дрони.
We have a lot of drones, but they...
Також я, в них то взагалі просто.
And you said that every unit has jammers.
Ну як в основному репліки.
We usually have them on the vehicles that take us to our positions. You only turn it on when you see a drone.
Репліку включали тільки коли вже бачили, що точно дрон летить.
Can you screw it down tighter? No? I'll hold it. You screw it down.
Does it feel strange to build drones now or not?
Yes.
Дуже дивно.
Does it feel weird? What do you feel?
Надію, що
I hope they'll be happy to have them out there.
використається правильно.
Doesn't it feel strange that with this thing we might...
Not at all. They invaded our country. I don't feel bad about doing this.
We shouldn't feel shame or guilt. We have the right to just protect ourselves. So I don't feel shame or guilt. Because I saw, like, I was under their occupation and I saw them killing, like, I didn't see them killing, but I saw dead bodies. And I could be there. So why should I feel shame?
Could have been you.
Yes. And I know it very clearly. Because when I saw news, women being raped, like massively, like there were like dozens of women being raped in Bucha, and I was just a kilometer from a rape. I didn't come to them. They came to here to commit war crimes, and everything that we can do is protect ourselves. And we need to be able to protect ourselves. Unfortunately, now Europe is not ready to protect themselves.
Along with the arrival of drones on the battlefield came the jammers, the signal blockers. And in response to those came autonomy in the form of AI programs, allowing drones to find and strike their targets all by themselves from far away, unhindered by jammers. The more autonomous, the more effective. Autonomy is the number one buzzword in the grey area between commerce and defence. If there's any place in the world that makes this clear, it's Exponential Europe, the leading European trade fair for autonomous systems.
Fascinating. It's all drones. All aerial drones.
Elke Schwarz is conducting research here. She's involved with several think tanks concerned with the regulation of war drones and military AI.
I mean, I see it through the eyes of defense and security. For me, everything looks weaponizable. Many of the drones that were sent to Ukraine were jammed. And so the desire, of course, is to kind of say, well, on this last stretch, why don't we have the drone or the payload find its way on its own by, recognizing a certain image and just going without human intervention. But then you're well on the road, slippery slope to autonomous weapon systems. So it's born kind of out of a necessity, but this is really also a future-oriented question. Do we want these kinds of systems?
What is the kill chain, and can you take us through it step by step?
Generally, there's a couple of steps. So there's find, fix, track, engage, and then assess. Finding a target is that, right? So identifying what is a good target, what is not a good target. Fixing a target means you kind of just hone in on it. Tracking means you can follow the target around, ultimately. Engage means engage the target. And then assess is where the outcome is assessed.
And engage basically means to kill.
Yeah. Euphemism, yeah.
Yeah.
Use kinetic force is the other one.
To use kinetic force
Yes.
to engage, and it basically means to blow up.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of euphemisms in this
Very
business.
much so, and which suggests that there is a natural animosity that we have to normalizing the killing of other humans, right? And so language is a sort of a veneer or a stand-in for that.
How far have we already automated the steps in the kill chain?
Technically speaking, you can do all of these steps with algorithmic type of systems.
That already exist.
In principle, they do, yes, yeah. So, the sequence might be interspersed with human judgment in between, but you could also automate that increasingly. And then we're ending up with an autonomous weapon system, of course.
Defense businesses all over the world are now focusing on automating the kill chain, the military decision-making process. They include everything from big American defense giants to small Dutch startups. So if you go for a run in the Dutch polders, don't be surprised if you trip over a military drone.
AI is een softwarebedrijf.
Intellic is a software company creating programs to make unmanned systems more autonomous. Military systems, specifically. We work mainly with the Dutch Defense Ministry. We're also active in Ukraine. That's no secret.
Dat is geen geheim.
I can't talk about what exactly we do there, obviously.
Daar kan ik natuurlijk niks over zeggen, maar...
The main thing is capturing the drone's images. The drone software picks up things like vehicles or people. You don't have to watch live all the time, but it's always a person who decides what is interesting in the end.
Ja, dat doet de mens altijd.
It is really the underlying, the stuff that's not so visible, that is terrifying if you think about it. They're called AI decision support systems. They are basically AI algorithmic type of substructures that take a number of parameters from various data sources and based on set parameters then suggest this is a legitimate or viable target. That is then suggested to a set of operators and a set of humans that approve or disapprove that target for targeting, and then that gets actioned. You can have an image recognition kind of AI type of system where you have a certain image, and if the system identifies that positively, then it can enact. Then to connect that to a system that can engage could potentially happen. The allure of that is, however, that an AI system can identify such targets, potential targets, I should say, very, very fast and at large scales. So then it becomes a production of targets, a production line of targets to then either be targeted or not targeted. But the idea is to not run out of targets. And that really subverts the idea of discriminatory warfare, if the mandate becomes all of a sudden to not run out of targets.
Disruptive American tech companies with names that sound like they belong in Lord of the Rings, like Anduril and Palantir, promote their AI technologies with commercials like these. War becomes an interface where you eliminate the enemy with a click.
The military market is a really powerful, strong market. The budget globally stands at $3 trillion, I think, and the US has about half of that. So I think it's interesting that the defense sector has been disrupted. I think we can certainly say that, in the style of Silicon Valley kind of disruption. Specifically, very prominent venture capital companies have really set their eyes on the defense sector. And so a different layer of financial interests has found its way into defense that before then wasn't so visible. One of the greatest opportunities for a lot of the drone startups, for example, is the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, because they have the opportunity to test out their systems. Now they become battle-tested systems, which increases their value. And also test it out, try, fail, try again, fail. This is ultimately the Silicon Valley approach. And these conflicts are tragically an ideal ground to do that.
We use it with FPV or with glider.
Yeah.
You just take it, drop it, and go back to reload.
Are you guys being asked to test a lot of stuff?
Oh God, yeah. There's every bloody defence startup in the world keeps emailing me or some other unit going, we will send you something, but we want reports and we want all this information. And it's a bit like, look, do your own R&D, will you? Are you in Ukraine? Are you? Do you want to come down to my unit and show us this? Because if you're not, no. Basically, there's help and there's people trying to get free R&D.
That's how it works in the international high-tech arms market. The more battle-tested combat hours something has, the better. The motto is move fast and break things.
Hello. Which country are you from?
The company comes originally from Ukraine. We are located in Kiev. We are not going to open our facility, our branch office in Munich in the next month.
This is the strange reality of the game we now find ourselves in. We want to avoid pitting our soldiers against their unmanned weapon systems, but they are equally unwilling to have their soldiers fight our unmanned weapon systems. And so billions are going into more unmanned weapon systems all over the world.
Goeiedag. Alles wel? Ja, zeker. Een tijdje niet gezien. Ja, goed jullie te zien. Alles goed.
In this environment, governments do not want to fall behind. Are we ready for drone warfare?
Daar eigenlijk wel klaar voor.
At the moment, we're not. Things are developing very fast in Ukraine, so it's important for us to keep in touch with them and learn from what's happening there. But it's becoming a war of technologies, a war of innovation. We can see that development every day.
The Dutch government is investing millions in the development of military drones for Ukraine. At the same time, it's busy testing unmanned weapon systems for its own use.
What I fear most is our enemies, our adversaries. Because our enemies will continue to develop their drones relentlessly. If we choose a different road, we can be sure that our enemies will be much stronger than us in a decade. So we must do it. But we must do it in our own way. That means we want norms and ethical standards. We know that our adversaries, such as Russia, and maybe China, do not have those norms.
Let's discharge the weapons outside and wait for further instructions.
Do you think a country like the Netherlands is actually ready for this kind of war?
Absolutely not. I don't think Britain is. Put it like this, the first Gulf War, we had to make a coalition between a bunch of nations to go and fight a technologically set back Middle Eastern army. To fight someone like Russia, we're so not ready. Are we psychologically ready as a military or a nation to lose 1,000 guys in a week? Every week? For a year? No, we're not at all. Look at the casualties of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's a bad Tuesday in Ukraine. Pleased to meet you. Nice
Great to meet you.
How are you?
Good. Did you see the drone, the aqua drone?
Was that I saw the boat going past and thought, is that it? War against Russia is one thing. War against China is quite another. China make all our electronic components. I use electronic components to make circuit boards, to make timers for the bombs we use all the time. Can I find components that are made outside of China? No. So what happens if we go to war with China and we suddenly realise that we haven't got factories that make a lot of stuff that becomes essential if your normal military and civilian logistics have become interrupted by a massive war that involves missiles and fighter planes and possibly a nuclear exchange? How do we make things like that then? Do we have the factories and the capacity to? That's something we need to consider in the future.
China, by far the biggest producer of drone parts in the world. Here at the trade fair, Chinese manufacturers offer their products to anyone who wants to buy them.
We are Chinese manufacturer, and we are specializing in those drone components, like drone models, propeller, ESC, and also including drone batteries.
Do you have a lot more business in Europe?
In Europe, yes. In Europe, in US. US.
You sell in US and Europe and
yes.
Is it a growing market?
Of course, we think the UAV is a huge market in the world. Defense, industrial, like agricultural, any other fields needs the UAV.
We do have a cooperation with some military companies from the Europe. Yes.
Is Ukraine one of them?
I can't say too much about that.
Oh, okay.
you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Do you think the Chinese are far ahead of us?
Ja, dat denk ik wel. Ja, absoluut. Met name in kosten.
Yes, I do, especially in terms of cost. China has really taken the lead here. Consumers who go into a store to buy a DJI drone are in fact sponsoring a military state-owned enterprise. Maybe it's not that obvious yet, but we can be sure that if a war breaks out, China is the best drone supplier in the world. China will have the best military drones.
Militaire drones. En zij verkopen zo ontzettend veel dat zij die techniek...
They have really advanced technology and it's very cheap. It's not something that Europe or the US would be able to emulate at the moment.
...plaats zijn om na te bootsen momenteel.
Have you seen that Chinese university clip of a swarm of drones flying in a forest?
Ja, klopt inderdaad. Ja, dat is wel beangstigend.
Yes, I've seen it. Pretty scary.
Especially since we know these days.
If they carry a payload, yes, that's scary.
Maybe a bit admirable too. Clever how they programmed it.
One might feel a technical curiosity about how the Chinese or others develop certain technologies, of course. But I'm a human being first, so that clip doesn't make me happy. No.
Dat zie je, dan sta ik er niet bij te juichen. Nee, zeker niet.
So swarm technology basically gives you mass. So it can be smaller systems that are equipped with a payload and they work kind of in tandem. So you can have a loiter munition swarm, for example, that descends upon a specific target. Quite a terrifying idea.
So it's not one drone hunting you, but...
Hundreds. It's very dystopian. It's dystopian. But you know, having spoken to some defense industry representatives, the idea is greater mass, and what is always foregrounded, and this has changed in the discourse as well, what is foregrounded is greater lethality. So the word lethality, more lethality through mass, has been more prominent in the last 5 years than it has been prior to that. So the idea is to kill more. Now, it's one thing to say, well, these are remotely piloted. It's another thing to say they're fully autonomous. But to what degree a drone swarm of 100 drones that are all equipped with a payload set loose in an urban environment, to what degree that can actually be controlled is a different question.
In the past, autonomous drone swarms were mostly the domain of university research labs. Today, they're increasingly being developed and used by governments, companies, and the military in real-world applications. Researcher Elke Schwartz says none of these things feel normal anymore.
Everywhere, every fair I go, there's one of these. Without fail, and it's always kind of walking around as a kind of like a clown attraction. But then when I talk about how easy it would be to mount a machine gun, and some systems do that, onto it, and it just starts looking a lot darker. Yeah, the hat is fooling nobody. and the googly eyes. Drones are absolutely everywhere, and the way they are able to inflict violence is faster, cheaper, and more ubiquitous. That's on the horizon for any future conflict. Warfare is a terrible business.
And it's maybe also a hard time to be a pacifist.
It's a terrible time to be a pacifist, actually. It's really difficult. And there are always tensions, right? So, you know, how do you justify a staunch perspective against violence and war in the face of Ukrainians who want to defend themselves, who need to defend themselves for survival and for a sustainable survival? But nonetheless, I think with so much attention paid to the militarization of Europe, of the US, of kind of the globe, we're losing track that war is ultimately a political problem, a social and political problem. Conflict is a social and political problem, not a technological problem or an engineering problem or indeed a software problem. So finding ways to cooperate, communicate, establish trust, establish alliances is really crucial in this contemporary moment.
Why do you think killer robots scare people so much?
Well, I mean, Terminator 2 was a very good film back in the day, I think, I guess people always imagine if they're up against a human that there's always an element of mercy and compassion that might come in there, that the bad guy might have a moment of humanity and decide to spare you or rescue you or whatever. But as for why people are so scared, I think it's just like people always imagine with another human that they'll change their mind at the last minute and not just execute them, With a robot, you're never going to get that.
And are people right to think that, you think?
I would, well, I've definitely seen mercy in this war. I decided to spur a guy one day. He was drunk in a canoe, and I just didn't feel like dropping a bomb on him, So I went and dropped it on his mates in the bunker about a mile away instead. And that day I decided to be Caesar and let him live. I think some of my friends killed him about a week later. He was just an alcoholic who kept sneaking off to get drunk in a boat, and they weren't feeling as merciful as me. He was a soldier in uniform with a gun on the battlefield. One less person to worry about. Again, if Ukraine's literally fighting for its existence against a numerically and equipment superior force, there isn't really much time for mercy.
What brigade?
National Guard, 3036. I was in Velika Novosilka. That's where I was hit.
By what?
An AGS-17.
Those small aluminium bullets.
In the X-ray, I lit up like a Christmas tree.
We thank our soldiers who protected us. We will keep on showing our gratitude in any way we can. Our foundation brought 140 soldiers to the Netherlands to receive care. The situation in Ukraine is horrendous, but here in the Netherlands, there's support.
Drones are really terrible. One day it will be drones fighting instead of people, I hope. It looks likely with the rise of AI. I've already seen lots of videos showing AI that recognizes targets and destroys them. That's the future. Drones can also work to our advantage. They're not necessarily good or bad. If only we could ban all the Russian drones.
Is this my family? Was this in the summer before you went to the front line?
Yes.
Exactly 1 month before I went.
This is the reality of war, the ugliest, most dreadful thing we humans do to one another. At best, we occasionally get together to agree not to use the most horrific weapons on each other. That's what we've done here in Geneva for more than a century now. After focusing on chemical, biological and nuclear weapons, officials at this UN office are now turning their attention to autonomous weapon systems.
Does justice fall silent when weapons speak? No, it does not. For many years, the conduct of war has been subject to restrictions. It's about human values, about moral and ethical considerations. That's what's led to various international agreements.
This is where an international working group is drafting a document that must be acceptable to all member states, including China, the United States and Russia. The deadline for this agreement is late 2026. So you hope humanity will manage to establish a moral baseline?
Yes, I do. I also think in the debate about autonomous weapons, we still have a chance to put those rules in place before the weapons are deployed.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. Many thanks for making yourself available. I know you have a busy schedule.
We also need to discuss the points at which humans must be involved in the use of these weapons systems. Simply saying they need to be is not enough. Or a person unpacking the system and switching it on is human control. No, that won't cut it.
Dat is waarschijnlijk niet genoeg. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I would like to resume our discussion. We still have a lot to do.
Isn't it strange to still talk to the Russians in a place like that?
Ja, natuurlijk. Dat is niet makkelijk.
Yes, of course. That's not easy. But I don't think ignoring them is an option. There are issues where we can ignore them, but this isn't one of them, definitely not. We also discuss arms controls within the EU, but that's not where we address these concerns. It's only meaningful if we also talk to China and Russia about it. Talking amongst ourselves is nice and pleasant, but not terribly useful. For this issue, all the major players are in the room. That means if we succeed in reaching an agreement, the world's major powers will be bound by it.
Het is een oorlog dat je hier weer vindt. En het graf van duizend soldaten. Altijd iemands vader, altijd iemands kind. Nu doodstille God verlaten.